Hi, good evening. We'll get started here momentarily. We'll give a moment for everybody to kind of file in, and then we'll kind of lock and load. The content will be laser focused to ISO 27001 tonight. So I would appreciate all the questions and focus to be to that topic because this is being recorded, right? And then I want to be able to upload it to YouTube for further access to our alumni, and we'll just keep it focused for tonight. For Friday, the ITCCB, then everyone will continue to, perform, their presentations and get feedback, right, on risk, right? So we'll launch that back full force and effect, on Friday. So I appreciate everybody's patience. How is everybody doing tonight, though? Doing okay?
Sorry, caught me away when I was away from the computer. Doing pretty
No,
good
you're
tonight.
good.
How about yourself?
Excellent, excellent. No, yeah, excellent. I know that time is upon us, right? So the end of the year, holidays. So it's going to be more and more like a skeleton crew. These will be recorded, but I'd like to get maximum participation as much as possible, right? Because there's nothing like being there in the moment to be able to ask the questions and to be involved, right?
Right.
So I tend to, when I watch videos, I tend to end up multitasking, and then I don't pay as much of attention when I'm listening to a recording by being there in the moment, right? So you can't replace that. So I always encourage the in-person, but I understand there's some people that cannot make it for a variety of reasons. And again, that's why we record these anyways. So, all right, 3 minutes to show time. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put it on mute. We'll just wait out the 3 minutes to let everybody kind of trickle in, and then we'll officially get started so I don't have to repeat myself, All right, see you in 3 minutes. All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Doing okay? Hanging in there?
Doing good.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. See how many
Yes,
people.
enjoying.
All right, excellent. Looks like we're. All right, excellent. Looks like we're waiting on some folks to trickle in. I'll give it a moment. How's everybody feeling tonight, though? Anybody sick? In a lot of the meetings I've been attending, a lot of people have been really sick. So, just especially during the holidays, nobody wants to be sick during the holidays. So I hope everybody is okay, everybody's of good health. And anybody have any plans?
I've got
No, go
an
ahead.
I've got an 8-year-old, so everybody's almost always sick here.
Oh, yes, I know. Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah, yeah, I remember those days. So
I got a kind of like a family Christmas party on Saturday, and on Friday I'm gonna have like a game night with a friend that I used to play hockey and his family with. So looking forward to that.
oh, that's nice. That sounds like fun. Sounds like fun for sure. Yeah, anyone else have any other plans while we're kind of just killing time? So it's not that, uncomfortable silence at the front end of the video. Anyone else have any other plans? Maybe traveling over the holidays? Any staycations? I hope everyone has a really good, at least relaxing time, decompressing time. We've got our graduation scheduled for December 29th, right? So right, on the cusp of the new year, the end of the year here, you're going to round out the graduation from the internship program. So, and again, I did record a Loom concerning what's to expect for the remainder of the time with the SOC, the GRC, and then of course post-graduation. So please refer to that Loom video that I posted at the MS Teams general channel for everyone to watch. Okay, because I've gotten a lot of different questions. I just kind of wanted to answer those there. Vice in this video that's gonna be recorded and then uploaded to YouTube. So, I'd like to have organic conversation and discussion with you all, but I definitely want to, when we get to lockstep into this training, I want it to be really focused on the ISO 27001 content and questions, right? So if that's okay, since it's going to be uploaded to YouTube anyways. And then we'll just give a link to you and then any of our alumni to go back and take a refresher. So I hope everybody's all right. So let's see. How many people do we have at the moment? 14. Okay. With the, courtesy of time, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and again, this is recorded, so everybody can refer back to. Okay, so, welcome to tonight's session, okay? We'll be walking through a high-level introduction into the ISO 27001 framework, discussing its scoping, implementation, and application. So with this slide, what are some key words you are picking up on this slide in particular? Anyone?
It's an international standard. It's used globally.
Absolutely. What else? So with ISO 27001, can an individual? Oh no, go ahead. Say again.
It's a framework of policies and procedures that includes.
Yes, it's a framework.
Technical controls.
Yes, exactly. It's a framework, right? Just like CIS and NIST, it's another framework that you're getting exposed to, right? With ISO 27001, the certification is with the business, the organization, not with the individual. Okay, that's important to note. Okay, so that's the third thing on this slide that I wanted you to take away from that. So let's talk about 6 main benefits of ISO 27001. And yes, we're going to read these. Who would like to read number 1?
The whole thing.
The whole thing, yeah, it's important because these are huge benefits. And then because you're going to get a lot of questions, right? Why should we go get certified in ISO 27001? Government institutions also get certified, believe it or not, in ISO 27001. 20,000 is service management, 9,001 is quality management, but ISO 27001 leans more for information security. Okay, And so even though organizations like the government are going to be NIST risk management framework, okay, get assessed, and they get what we call an authority to operate for the various systems on that network, okay, following through the NIST controls guidance and framework. They still, many of the those elements, the organizations actually go through an ISO 27001 certification, believe it or not. So, you know, whether or not your commercial organization or even government institutions actually follow through the ISO 27001 guidance and certification requirements in preparation for an audit and what have you. So I just want to kind of point that out. But yeah, we're going to read this because this is important. So let's go ahead with number 1.
Information security issue. With increasing fines for personal data breaches, organizations need to ensure compliance with legislative requirements such as the UK Data Protection Act. How ISO 27001 helps provides a framework for the management of information security risks, which ensures you take into account your legal and regulatory requirements, benefits, supports compliance with relevant laws and regulations, reduces likelihood of facing prosecution and fines, can also help you gain status as a preferred supplier.
Exactly, right. You see that? So, you know, a lot of people look, just like when we as consumers, right, look at various, you know, feedback, right, from folks. You know, we look at comments, we look at ratings, right, when we go to utilize a business. ISO 27001 certification of that organization can further bolster the credibility with your consumer base and, you know, all the different stakeholders in that supply chain, right? So it's definitely very beneficial. All right, thank you. Who wants to go next?
I'll take the next one.
Okay.
So, the second point is that it's potential information breach damaging your reputation, and then how it helps. It requires you to identify risks to your information and put in place security measures to manage or reduce them. And the benefit is that it protects your reputation and it provides reassurance to clients that your information is secure. And then it's cost saving through reduction in incidents.
Excellent. Excellent. Yep. Thank you. And now you see why we're actually reading it, taking time to read it. Because I know if I gave you guys the slides, I'd say about 1% of you would actually read it. So that's why I want to kind of hone in on this, because these are very specific points, right, that supports the ISO 27001 component and why organizations really should seek out and obtain the ISO 27001 certification. But then again, they have to renew it, right? They have to get recertified also. So, you know, once you get it, it's not just indefinite. You have to be recertified also on a regular basis. So who wants to read number 3?
I can take it again.
Okay.
Availability of vital information at all times. And then how it helps. It ensures that authorized users have secure access to information when they need it. And a benefit is that it demonstrates credibility and trust, improves your ability to recover your operations and continue business as usual.
Excellent. Right. Excellent. So, you know, and that's the other thing. It's like going through a check. And also when you go through cybersecurity insurance, right? Insurers. Okay. You know, every single insurance company wants to make sure that, you know, you can lower the risk, right? So they're not going to actually support you. They're not even going to take you on and provide you cybersecurity insurance if you don't have, if you can give them a reasonable assurance that you at least met the minimum standards, right? Because again, who wants to, it's all risk, right? So who wants to leave everything open, right? You know, wide open and then just rely on cybersecurity. I've heard that a lot actually from different organizations, but it doesn't work like that. I say, oh, well, I'll do the cybersecurity insurance and they'll just pay for it if I get breached. It doesn't work like that though, because you won't even get an insurer to insure your organization if you can't provide a level of assurance that you've at least minimized that risk enough to where they are willing to take you on, right, as a client, right? Because that would be a lot of money they would have to shell out just for people's negligence and, you know, right? So that's something to take into consideration, because that's something of, you know, again, that you have to provide that those evidentiary artifacts to substantiate that you've met that lower level of risk for a cybersecurity insurer to even provide you with a policy. Okay. All right. So there are 6 total benefits. There's 3 more. So 4 through 6 are on the next slide. And again, the reason why I'm doing this, right, is because I know that 99% of you will not read this. I can give you the slide deck, but you'll bin it, right? Nobody will really refer back to it. The 1% will, but these are all very germane, very important components to why we even do an ISO 27001 in the first place. If you notice, the first column is the problem. The second column is the solution, right? And then the third is how it further supports that solution, right? The benefits of that solution. So, all right, who wants to read number 4, please?
I can pick that up.
Okay.
Lack of
thank you.
confidence in your organization's ability to manage information security risks. Gives you a framework for identifying risks to information security and implementing appropriate management and technical controls. Benefits: confidence in your information security arrangements, better visibility of risks amongst interested stakeholders.
Absolutely. Right. And not just internally, right, but also your external supply chain risk management component. And that's what the next one's going to kind of talk about too a bit as well. So who wants to read number 5?
I can take 5.
Yes, I'll take it.
Okay, go for it.
So, security issue, difficulty in responding to rising customer expectations in relation to the security of their information. How ISO 27001 helps, it provides a way of ensuring that a common set of policies, procedures, and controls are in place to manage risks to information security. Benefits include meet customers and tender requirements, reduce third-party scrutiny of your information security requirements, get a competitive advantage.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So, excellent. Thank you. Who wants to read number 6?
No awareness or
Go for
information
6.
security within your organization. It ensures senior management recognize information security as a priority, and then that there is a clear level of knowledge from the top level of the way down. Improve information security awareness shows commitment to information security at all levels through your organization. Reduce staff-related security breach.
Excellent. And here's the thing, and this is why this is another thing that ISO 27001, the framework, does a really good job in doing. So even though the NIST 853, right, has the technical, operational, and management controls, as you all saw from actually reading and conducting the gap analyses, right, on your assigned controls, right? We had to crosswalk the NIST to the CIS controls, right? But in there, and there are some management controls, right? But these specifically, as part of that audit, actually really hone in on that. Is your management level being informed of the risk, right? Are they even taking measures to do anything about it? Okay, because even in government and other places, right, you can, pitch till you're blue in the face, and it just depends on the leadership, right? Some take action, some don't. So you document and escalate, right? But the management component is key here. And that's why I really like, even though NIST references it, this one has a solid concentration on this. And so you have the internal controls team, okay, just like you guys self-assess and do the self-assessments, right, for our organization. So you guys are essentially the internal controls team, right? So you'd have an internal controls team that would do the audit prep. They do the regular, basically self-assessments, self-checks like you're doing using ISO 27001, right? And then, of course, getting prepped for the said third-party audit, right? That would actually do a third-party review in order to see if they meet the requirements for an ISO 27001 certification of that organization. The thing is, though, ISO 27001, the NXA, is very compressed. The information, like it doesn't go as deep dive as the NIST 853 Rev 5 does. That implementation guide, right? It goes extensively on how to implement with supplemental guidance. And even the 53 Alpha, which is the assessment guide, even provide, determine if, there's a policy, for instance, and that provides you even some, some evidentiary artifacts you could potentially look towards. There's a lot more guidance in the NIST publication applications, okay, than there is with ISO 27001. And you'll see later on today where, in fact, there's already that document is already uploaded in our SharePoint site. But I'm going to go ahead and pull it up tonight too for the recording. Okay, but incredibly important, incredibly valuable. NIST 853 Rev 5 is the bedrock. That is the foundational document. And even though, yes, that's our national standards, you know, for cybersecurity, basically. I mean, there's a NIST pub for cloud, NIST pub for BYOD, NIST pub for AI, NIST pub for cloud, right? All of it out there. Okay, you just go to NIST.gov and everything's there. Okay, and Google it, right? You know, so why it's like, I used to get when I used to teach like at NYU and UCF, I used to get from the students, well, why are we using then United States, like NIST stuff for overseas? Because everybody uses it, just like GDPR. GDPR is European, right? European data privacy standard, but everybody's adopted. It's become the de facto standard for all of us to implement because it's good guidance. And even though there's different like national guidance, there's state guidance, you know, there's different foreign entity guidance that you have to take in consideration, right? And those laws and regulations as they pertain to that geographical area, that country, you know, that space, right? But NIST is so good because it provides the deeper dive information in order to make some really good informed decisions and, you know, on implementation. And of course, even doing a good analysis, a gap analysis like you guys have been undertaking to know what to look at, what meets the sniff test, what doesn't, right? ISO 27001 is excellent, right? So similar to the NIST risk management framework, ISO uses, you know, 6-part planning process as part of its framework design, right? So define the security policy, just like we discussed in NIST and CIS, that training, right? What do? We decide to define the scope, right, of the ISMS. And so that's just looking at, okay, what's going to be audited? Is it going to be the entire network? Is it going to be a system, right? A firewall, for instance? Well, I mean, what's the part of that? And that's something that's identified by the organization that's being audited, okay? And then, of course, manage identified risk. You're going to select control objectives and controls to be implemented. We'll talk about that and how that's done here momentarily as part of your preparation of your statement of applicability and what that looks like in the preceding slides. So what is a statement of applicability, right? A SOA. It is a mandatory requirement. The statement of applicability, or SOA, is one of the most critical documents in support of an ISO 27001 audit. You can't kick off an ISO 27001 certification audit without one, okay? This is one of the most critical documents. You don't have it, you're not going to get audited. Because it's not something that the auditors can overlook at all. It's a mandatory requirement. So what do you think it means when it mentions identifying your organization's ISMS and list the controls that apply? Right? So what do you think that means? What is your interpretation of that?
It sounds like it's almost like you're stating the purpose, kind of like with telecommunications. In the event that they have those licenses, they let you know the services that they offer and the goal at the end of the day. And in the event that it doesn't meet up to what they said that they should be offering, the audit is conducted based off that.
Okay, that's a good start. That's a good start. I'll take that as a preparatory statement into. So basically, it's selecting the controls baseline, right? So remember when we pulled up the NIST 853. There's low, moderate, and high baseline of controls, right? And based upon your system security classification of your data, right? Whether or not it's privacy data, whether or not it's, you know, HIPAA data, whatever's on there, right? You know, could require either a medium level set of controls or a high level set of controls, right? And then of course the security controls themselves, like for instance, NIST has the AC family of controls, the AU family of controls for audit, et cetera. AC is account, you know, access control, you know, et cetera, right? So basically you're choosing the controls for your scope, for that system, okay? And so you're going to tailor in or even tailor out said controls, okay, that are going to be used as, they're going to be audited, okay? And you have to explain why controls were excluded. Like you can't just, the power of the pen say, well, that's not applicable to my system, right? because, just like vulnerability analyses or what have you, running scans, RA5, right? In the NIST 853 Rev 5. You can't say NA just because you want to as a manager, right? So you have to have a justification. And in fact, when you're speaking to the auditor, they might, even though you've excluded them, when they're looking at the scope, which is the system, and they're going to recommend that be scoped in. And of course, you're going to have a kickoff meeting, right? You're going to have a kickoff meeting with all the stakeholders. You're going to make sure identify all the right people that should be there and answer questions as per scheduled, right? There is a very tight schedule when it comes to ISO 27001 audits. And you can't do anything outside of that. Also with ISO 27001, you cannot give a preliminary report, basically. You can't allow for the 21 days or 30 days like you can with NIST RMF. You can give like a preliminary report of findings and recommendations to the organization, right, to the stakeholders, and allow them to kind of review, take about 21, 30 days. And of course, provide any, let's just say, their evidence or artifacts that maybe their team didn't get in time, that they have the opportunity to either mitigate some controls if they can, or provide some documentary evidence or whatever. And then of course, whatever is not there, obviously you have to flag it. You have to, give them a finding anyways. Okay, so in this world, we call it findings. In ISO world, we call it non-conformities. So that's the terminology, and it's important to know that because there's a difference. We call it non-conformities. The other thing too with ISO audits is, how I always tell you guys, pursuant to NIST, we can do findings, recommendations, and alternatives. Well, with ISO 27001 and 20000 and 9001, for instance, you can only provide the list of non-conformities. You cannot provide recommendations at all. You're not allowed to. Okay, as part of the audit. Okay, so yeah. So again, understand, that's what I'm saying. I'm going over this for you. You're probably not going to remember this, and this is okay. So that's why I'm recording this. You can always go back to it. And also it's a good refresher for the last, because I think I did this one back, I don't know, I think it was May or something, for the spring internship. But I've also augmented it with a couple of more slides too, as well. So this will be good for a refresher for them as well. And you can always return back because, again, you'll have access to the content forever, right? All the training stuff that you went through, you'll be able to go back and review if you'd like, okay? Because again, I always say, go back to authoritative sources for information, okay? All right, so is everyone tracking so far? Everyone hanging in there with me so far? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Doing good.
Okay, excellent. All right, so let's go ahead then and look at what a SOA would look like then, okay? So here's, of course, a top, having just kind of screenshot, if you will. So, this is statement of applicability. So this is tailoring in the relevant controls. So, the short name, the ID number of it, the control description. In this case, the example is the SDLC, System Development Lifecycle Process, applies to systems development and includes secure coding guidelines, etc. Right? So, there's a whole list of things. I just at the top part, for an example. Okay, but these are what were tailored in as part of that statement of applicability that were applicable and justified. Okay, they're named in the information risk assessment as being necessary to manage one or more of the risks identified in their information risk assessment, and thereby going to be part of the entire ISMS scope. That's basically the system scope. Okay, system, network, whatever you're assessing or going to have assessed. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and I lost my mouse here. What the heck? There we go. Okay. So just like NIST and CIS, okay, and their tailored binning of controls, ISO has standards organized into 12 sections. Okay. So they have risk assessment, security policy, right? Asset management, access control, business continuity management, and compliance, right? So with all the same stuff, a lot of the same that you see in NIST and CIS, it's just been differently, okay? And instead of name, let's just say NIST SP 853 Rev 5, control AC 1, enhancement 1, for instance, these are, A dot whatever, because, and you'll see that in the crosswalk between the NIST 853 and the Annex A at the tail end of this, because I'll bring it up. But you'll see that. It's just a different nomenclature, different reference to controls. So just like with anything, you look at to what the control is asking, okay, and only answer that control. Don't go outside of that. Right, it's a pretty comprehensive review. It is. And it is internationally recognized. NIST is as well, but nobody gets a NIST RMF outside of the United States, okay, systems. Nobody goes through the risk management process, like goes through an ATO process, right? That's synonymous with government systems and regulatory compliance systems like banking institutions, right? Non-government, but huge regulatory requirements, right? Or like, education as FERPA, right? That's the act that governs, of course, education data, right? Student data and faculty data. And then, of course, HIPAA, right, for the health, the PHI for hospitals, right? So those that are highly regulated, right, will pursue and look to, and there's even a NIST banking guidance. So if you look at the NIST.gov, you can just do a search and it'll come up. There's a banking guidance on how to manage and maintain and secure banking systems, what that requirement looks like, and the crosswalk to the other different regulations that apply to those data types. So you know how I always say, conduct a data inventory first. Understand what you're even looking at, the types of data running through the veins of that architecture, processed, stored, transmitted, because that's going to lean then to whatever regulatory guidance, laws that governing how you should manage the data, right? But also how you should store the data and how you should secure the data. And of course, reporting compliance on it, right? So there's a lot involved in this, okay? All right, so other standards, right? So you're gonna hear a lot, 27001 is the main on the information security, but under the 27,000 family are some main standards you should really be made aware of, okay? So 27003 is the implementation guidance, okay? So that gives you additional information. It's still not as comprehensive though, as the NIST 853 Rev 5 is for the NIST RMF, okay? But it's okay, it's good to refer to, okay? I would say, get familiar with these. If you're doing an ISO audit, or even if you're prepping for one, you should be familiar with these. 27004 is the Information Security Management Measurement Standard, the KPIs, right? We always talk about key performance indicators. You don't even have to make them up. They actually give you specific guidance and suggested metrics to improve the effectiveness of your ISMS, 27005, and that's good. That's why I like ISO 27001 for that. So there's some really good positives when actually referring to and pursuing an ISO 27001 audit, 20,000 even for, like I said, service management, and then 9,001 for quality management. But this is all under the 27,001 framework, if you will. 27,005 is Information Security Risk Management Standard. 27,006 is the guide to the certification or registration process for accredited ISMS certification or registration bodies, and who actually are the approving authority for that. Okay. I have podcasts about CMMC. I've hoped at least there were 2 podcasts governing CMMC. I've hoped at least you've, had the opportunity to at least listen to one, if not the other. But their accreditation body or their authorization body is the Cyber AB, right? The authorization body. They're the only ones that can, as a third party, authorize a CMMC certification for their organization. Similarly, okay, there's different organizations that are approved that can issue an ISO 27001 to that organization. PECB is one of them. So PECB, there's like 3 or 4 of them out there. So again, make sure you're getting it from an authoritative source, okay? Because you can't authorize it. The auditor company can't authorize it. They have to take the things, the non-conformities. They have to provide the entire report, okay? They don't even make a recommendation on risk. Like you would see in NIST RMF. NIST RMF, the risk management framework, you would actually give findings, recommendations, right, and alternatives where applicable. But then, of course, you can make a recommendation on the level of risk that you think that the CIO or the authorizing official should sign off on, high, moderate, or low, right, based upon the threat level of that organization's risk posture. Okay, you cannot do that with ISO 27001 audits. okay, at all. Actually, you are just to provide the nonconformities, the entire packet, any, evidentiary artifacts, all of that, okay? And you supply that packet to the authorization body, okay? And the authorization body then makes the determination whether or not that organization will receive an ISO 27001 or not, okay? And I mean, it's incredibly important. I'll dissect that in a minute. So 27007 is the ISMS auditing guideline. That's important too. And there's also additional supplemental addendums because they used to not let remote audits at all, okay? But of course, post-COVID and all that, they kind of had to, right, for compliance. And so there is a remote guidance also that's available on what to do. There's even sampling guidance, right? So when you're doing measurement standard and all that, there's even what the random sampling guidance should look at. So for instance, if you have, let's just say 8 multi-sites that you're looking at, right, in that organization, I mean, there's a lot of data there, right? So instead of looking at, let's just say 100,000 user accounts to verify, let's just say annual recertification of users, okay, which is a requirement even under NIST guidance, you get a random sampling, which is accumulation of, and this is just the under GAO auspices, right? All of that. Basically the accounting office, GAO.gov. It's 10% is pretty much the standard. Okay, so when you do SOX audit, SOX, because I'll cover that too. I'll do a training on that also. But generally across the board in the audit, in the audit industry, if you will, it's a pretty much unspoken standard, if you will, of a 10%, which meets the random sampling threshold, right? Because due to time, there's no way you can look at 100,000 accounts. It's impossible. So you have to do a sampling of, and you just do a random sampling, right? That's how you do it. And that's okay. That is in accordance with the auditing world. That suffices, right? Anything less than that, it doesn't, and they'll throw it out. So they'll throw the entire, they'll say, no, that doesn't meet the requirement to go back. Right? All right, so let's look at some of the resources that I did recommend, okay? And again, I picked, kind of the top half here of look at, how the NIST controls, AC-1, access control policy procedures. And of course, here's then the nomenclature of the ISO 27001 controls, we call the Annex A, okay? And of course, the 2 documents that I reference here, I'm actually going to pull up. So let me go ahead and okay, move this over to the screen here. Okay. All right. If it comes up, what happened? Come on. Okay, so anyways, here is the, make it bigger. And this document, to my recollection, right, my recollection is in the SharePoint already, but I'll provide this also as supplemental guidance to support when I do when I provide the recording link. I'll also provide supplemental guidance also at that time, so you have that. But here's the controls mappings. Again, I didn't make this up. You can Google this, okay? And again, this is used across industry, okay? Gives you some, preface information there, but here's the mapping of the controls. Okay, and a lot of us then take this information and then we do something like this. So this is what I've done in the past, right? This is the crosswalk. I even had COBIT. I had, COBIT, a variety of things. And this is done under Rev 4. I haven't updated it to Rev 5. Yeah, it's Rev 4. So, but again, it helps because when you're doing various audits, okay, it can get just a little cumbersome to kind of, because you're not going to remember it all. You just, you have to kind of, it's easier to crosswalk. So a lot of us will put it in a like a spreadsheet format or what have you to make it a lot easier, right? So we can say, okay, we're looking at Annex A, this number, we're looking for additional supplemental guidance. What is it then? What was the crosswalk to the related control? So I can look to see what evidence is required or what implementation, et cetera, right, to meet the audit requirements. Okay, so this is one of many. This is one that I put together years ago, actually, a few years back. It's a little old and outdated. Like I said, it needs to be updated, right, to Rev 5 and all that. And I'm sure the other stuff is outdated too. So, but anyway, there's other stuff. You can Google stuff. I mean, like I've done this, but you can Google stuff. A lot of people, that's what we do. We share in our industry, right? we share. And so you'll see a lot of this stuff where somebody's done it. You know, obviously you don't want to share if you've got details in there, okay? But it does help, okay? Because, you know, again, especially when you're trying to look and do audits or when you even do an audit preparation for an organization, like this is definitely invaluable. So yeah, so those are the two documents referenced in the slide deck there. Almost finished, I promise. I've got a few questions too for you guys. 1 second. Got a few screens up here, but sometimes it gets, you know, lost in the sauce, right? When you have multiple screens, multiple monitors, and then sometimes things you have to remember, okay, where did it go? Where did it hide and what monitor? So, you know, it's all good though. Adapt, overcome, and improvise, right? So, you know, just again, as a summary of this slide, you know, as the NIST SP 853 Rev 5 is the core underlying reference point that you all have gotten familiar with during this program, there are actual mappings for easy reference for SP 853 Rev 5 to the ISO 27001 Annex A controls. Okay, and again, I will provide these resources at the conclusion of this training session when I provide the recording link. So it's all in one fell swoop. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some review, okay? Do some review. Let me pull up and see if I can get chat here. Where's the chat? Where'd my chat box go? Chat box here. Hold on a second. Let me expand it. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and yeah, exactly. So who's that? Who said that? Ian, right? Ian, yes, that's exactly why you do a self-assessment, right? You do self-checks. And that's why in our organization, right, we have, you know, a team, we do self-checks for preparation because you should know what your nonconformities are, what your findings are, right, in your organization. But many organizations don't do that. They rely, because many times they either don't have the skills, the knowledge, the abilities, or they're just so overburdened with a lot of the other operational tasks that they just wait for the external third-party auditor to come and do the audit, and they say, okay, well, we'll just have them do it, and then they'll let us know. But they do that same thing with penetration testing, which makes no sense, but you'll see that, and it's baffling because it's common sense, right? Wouldn't you want to know what's in your organization already so you can prep? That's why you do audit prep, right? You do audit preparation. Because again, if you are at such a high risk, you have so many nonconformities in different areas, especially core nonconformities, you'll pay all this money and you won't get an ISO 27001 certification. Okay, you'll have to pay the auditor company to come back, do the validation of anything. You can't just say, okay, we fixed it. You have to wait for them to come back, validate that in fact those things have been fixed. And there's a time limit because it's like 3 or 6 months. It just depends, right? And so anything outside of that, again, you can lose the opportunity to get the ISO 27001 certification. You have to then pay for them to come back. And that's why I've been hired on to actually do like one of the jobs is like process engineering or process re-engineering. Okay, that's a GRC related position. A lot of people don't know to look for that one. That one pays any between $85 an hour that I've seen all the way up to like $225 an hour. Okay, and what that is when an auditor has come out, an ISO 27001 audit, for instance, or 9001 or 20,000, the third-party auditors come to that organization, identify the nonconformities, especially in the area of policies and procedures. Okay, and they either don't have the skills or they're just overwhelmed or whatever. They'll hire an outside party to come in for 3 to 6 months, kind of help them clean it up, to kind of get everything polished, and then ready to bring back the ISO 27001 auditor or the 20,000 or the 9001 to actually do the validation of those said policy procedures to do the sniff test, right? To substantiate meeting all the documentary policy procedures related risk, you know, nonconformities that were identified during that audit time frame. And so the audits are snapshot in time. Okay. In NIST world, NIST RMF, we don't call them audits, we call them assessments. So you'll see position for NIST risk management framework as an assessor. Everywhere else, ISO, SOX, A123, FISCAM, they're called auditors. Okay, they're called IT auditors. All right, so let's go ahead and yeah, awesome. Okay, so question number 1, what should an organization do to comply with the ISO IEC 27001. So go ahead and read that, and then you can either vocalize it or put it in the chat, A, B, or C. Take a moment to read it. Let me know what you think. Okay, so we have some A's, some A's. A, right? A. So you don't want to have it only for top management, right? Because there's very echelons that are required, right? It's communication. You don't want it to be, there's communication across the board. So your policy procedures need to be disseminated to the need to know aspect, right? But all the people that are in that chain, right? So that's important. That's why the one that only to top management, you can rule that one out. Develop a guideline for control of the documented information only when requested by an executive. You can rule that one out because you've got your engineers, right? You got your cyber peeps, and internal control, right? All that looking at it. So again, the best one, the best answer to this one is develop a procedure for the control of the documented information. A. So for those of you that said A, awesome, great job. Okay, and again, it's not like it's graded or anything you're learning, so no worries at all. Let's go to the next one. So in order to comply with ISO 27001, organizations should fulfill some mandatory requirements on how to document controls. Is that true or false? What do you think? A or B? What do you think? Put in the chat. Some truths. Yes. So for those of you that said A is correct. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Let's go to question number 3. So what does a master list of documents in the context of the ISMS contain? Let's go and take a moment and read it and put A, B, or C in the chat. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, for those of you that put A, all documentation related to the ISMS in a single list. So with that said, out of what you reviewed as part of your gap analysis, your risk assessment of Cyvergence AI, do we have a master list of documents? We have policy procedures in the SharePoint site. Pretty comprehensive, right? Pretty well organized. Everybody's taken a lot of time to organize those in the best way possible with documentation overload. I get it. Policies and procedures. But do we have a comprehensive documentation of our policy procedures, a document in a single list? Yes or no? No, that's correct. So that would be then a non-conformity as identified with Cyvergence AI organization. And that's something then we should, develop a POAM for, plan of actions and milestones, right? And put that in, put that on our CIS CSAT dashboard and work to mitigate that risk, right? So, yeah. So again, this is another reason why too, it's always good to look at other frameworks too, because this is pretty comprehensive. And there is a CM family of controls. That's change management. It goes through, and configuration management, right? It goes through documentation control, version control, the nomenclature of documents, all that kind of stuff, right? Going through the ITCCB, for instance, right? For notifications of change and things, for configuration settings, and also the management of your documents in a centralized area, right? With the right people that have access to it, right? But again, it doesn't mention a single list either. Nowhere you're going to find that in NIST, a single list. It is, however, a requirement for the ISO 27001. So given that criteria, then we should jot this down, note it, and put it in, develop a POAM, plans of actions and milestones, and work then with an estimated completion date and work to remediate this said, not what we call non-conformity in ISO language, right? So, all right, excellent though. You guys are doing awesome. Okay. So question number 4, what does a procedure describe? So look at A, B, and C and put what you think in the chat. Yeah, for those of you who put C is correct, right? The detailed explanation of the functioning of the process. The process is how, right? So the policy is why. You remember, even at Cybergence, right? We have a lot of policies. We have a lot of policies, well-written policies, and many of them also take from the SANS templates too, right? Which is awesome because they made the sniff test. So a lot of policies, but what we're lacking still, you know, we have a lot of procedures, but we still need to document procedures. Procedures are the center operating, the how-to, the functioning of a process, right? So a detailed explanation of the functioning of a process with process flow diagrams too many times, right? What to do, what the line of succession is, you know, screenshots if you need to, you know, how would you install, I should say, disaster recovery, process, right? How would you recover a system, recover and reconstitution, right, of a system. And so you put step-by-step instructions of how you would, who you contact, if there are vendors or account numbers, all that kind of stuff, you put that in there, right? So it's the functioning of a process, okay? Detailed as pursuant to, tailored for that organization, right? And so again, if something happens, and say you're in the Turks and the Caicos, say you're the main engineer, right, for that said system, something goes down, right? You kick off your contingency plan or whatever, and you need to bring it back up to for mission operations. You're gone though. So somebody needs to be able to bring it back up in your stead, at least to a certain degree, so the mission can continue, right? So, I mean, you're on vacations. What are you going to do, right? By the time you fly back in, your, let's just say 4 hours, return to operation timeline has been exceeded by that time, right? Especially if you're overseas somewhere in the Caribbean or whatever. So, yeah, so procedures, right? Procedures are processes, the functioning of the process, the how-to, pursuant to how that organization actually does it. Okay, so it goes even deeper than a user guide would, right? Who, also, and what, right? So it's okay. Okay, let's talk about the session summary. What we talked about tonight. SMS is, documented, is needed to comply with ISO 27001 requirements. Every document pursuant to the CM family of controls and pursuant to the ISO 27001 should have a title, a date, an author, and a reference number. Organizations should develop procedures, right, the processes for the control of documents and records, okay? Same thing with the CM family of controls, and I like the CM family controls because actually that actually goes deep dive on how to do that, which I like. There is no requirement on how document processes and security controls are the types to be used. The ISO 27001, however, that's why I say refer then to the CM family of controls and the NIST 853, because that provides additional guidance. So you're not trying to recreate the wheel. You can create something that works. It's effective for your organization. It meets audit criteria, okay? All right, the next one that we discussed, some types of documents that can be used are policies, procedures, guidelines, security manuals, forms, data sheets, what have you. And so the document you can refer to when doing a crosswalk, in addition to the ISO 27001 stuff, is the NIST 853 alpha, because remember it says determine if, right? For instance, there's an access control policy, right? And it'll give you information and documents you can examine, you can observe, right? All these things, right? We're going to be a technical operational management control. So refer to the NIST 853 Rev 5 alpha, because that's the assessment document. Basically, that would be the complementary document that you could use as part of your ISO audit. Okay, and then of course, last but not least, a master list of documents helps organize all documentation related to the ISMS in a single list. And again, that's something we're even lacking. There are a lot of policies, working on the procedures, got a lot of procedures, still working on them, though, right? You guys have done a phenomenal job, honestly. But again, this is something that's obviously a non-conformity for us, right? Knowing that even before we hire an ISO 27001 audit, third-party audit for objectivity, right? Again, you should know what your risk is. Absolutely, you should know what your risk posture is. And a lot of people don't do self-assessments. They don't do them at all. Like I was mentioning earlier, they just rely on a third-party auditor kind of basically do the work for them. And it's just a lazy way of doing it, honestly. So, but you'd be surprised that about 80%, maybe 85% of organizations actually do it that way. Yeah, which is unacceptable in my opinion, right? All you can do is make recommendations. So, to that organization's leadership, right? All right, so in conclusion, definitely appreciate your time tonight, and let's open it up for any further questions. So any questions on the ISO 27001 framework tonight? You guys have been awesome. So I made sure you guys were engaged by, again, reading because again, I know even students average don't actually really read. You can provide a slide deck, but as humans, just the human nature, I just know I'm just realistic with people, and so I'd rather than have you again participate, be engaged, and read it at least during the session, and that'll help anybody too that wasn't here, right? To when they're looking at the recording. All right, you guys are awesome. Did everyone see that Loom then to discuss the SOC, discuss the GRC, the next steps and things governing that? I want everyone though part of the SOC. Everyone in the fall internship program should be part of the SOC. Whether, and you should have a Jump Cloud course cert in order to be able to be included in the SOC, with admin rights. But still, those that even want to just stay in GRC and do a GRC, that's fine. But I still want you to at least shadow the SOC team. Why? Because again, those are advantageous skills that you definitely want to learn, because you can speak from context. And trust me, in an interview, they can tell the difference. Whether or not you just know theory, you're reading it, because they'll ask you scenario-based questions too, right? And SOC analyst is a lot of defensive posturing stuff. You're doing instant response. You're looking at indicators of compromise. You're looking at configuration baselines. You're looking at logs, right? You're looking to see if data at rest compliance, right? And all that. So it's a lot of compliance generated stuff all on that one big dashboard. A lot of people, it's deceiving because normally in a SOC, you'll have 7 or 8 dashboards to manage. This with Jump Cloud, it centralizes it all in one, right? So as we're looking at it, you just have to go know where to look and follow the checklist that's been designed and the end of shift reports and what have you. So I want everyone, whether or not you want to be just in GRC or not, I want everyone to partake in the SOC, okay? And don't worry about it. Don't feel bad if you didn't pass your Jump Cloud course cert, okay? You can at least get on to shadow a shift, 1 shift per week, all right? Work with, we'll give you admin with read only, okay? You can't manipulate anything, but that'll then give you the view of everything in there, because regular user, you're not going to have that type of view. And then you can follow along, especially since we're all remote, right, to kind of learn with that shift lead, right, or that other SOC analyst that's covering down on that shift. But I want everybody to learn, okay? And then in addition to that, with GRC, everyone's going to still continue to conduct their gap analyses, right? And even if you're finished with your controls, ask for more, right? Ask for more. And then of course, every week, you will be doing live presentations, right? On, like, for instance, this Friday, you'll be at the ITCCB, you'll be presenting a risk, right? Your controls live. But I do want you anyways to just record a 1 to 3 minute, pitch, if you will, of your risk. Okay, even if you've done it already, re-record it, practice, right? Because again, the presentation aspect of presenting risk to executives and basically everyone in the echelon, the more you can get comfortable with that aspect, the better off you'll be, because that is a critical skill in our industry, okay, for cybersecurity, because we solve problems. In order to solve problems, you have to talk about it, and you have to be able to message it correctly, know the correct audience, and just become familiar with that. And I wish you guys would have seen the transformation even from the spring internship when they first started, and then of course towards the end, and they got really good. And then now too, the folks that have stayed on, phenomenal, right? Phenomenal. They sound like bona fide cybersecurity professionals. So I can stand behind them, knowing that they know what they're doing now, right? They're still learning, of course, but still, they're good. They're quality folks. And they'd be a value asset to any organization out there that's looking to take them on, right? So I want the same of you also in the fall internship team, is that I want you to just, if not for me, for you, right? Record yourself and play it back, watch it yourself, because you'll see, like, record it with your face in there, your body language, position yourself, in the middle of the the screen, make sure you're making eye contact, make sure you're not reading the slides and all that other stuff, right? I mean, it's one thing if you read one slide, it's okay. But like if you read the whole thing, I mean, people know, right? And it just kind of takes the credibility out of it. So, you know, have some bulleted points. You can have a teleprompter if you want, but make eye contact, be direct and to the point as much as you can. You know, and remember, the majority of these, when you're presenting risk executives, many of them don't know cybersecurity, right? So they don't have that technical underpinning, okay, that a regular engineer would have. A lot of the CISOs, there are some CISOs, yes, that have come up through the ranks, basically, as engineers, database administrators, database designers or web designers or whatever. Okay, they've come up the ranks, and of course now in that CISO or CIO seat, but that's a 0.00001% of everyone in industry. I'm just being honest. Okay, so you have to remember that, because you remember when you first, let's just say, took your first course. So you know, even when you first came here and we were talking about gap analysis and this, you're like, oh my God, they're in the headlines. And I said, well, just wait a couple weeks, right? When you get your feet wet, you look at your first controls, then it'll become a lot more apparent to you, right, what you're doing. So similarly, they're going to come from a space of, they know keywords, so they sound good. But these people are businesses, that's all they know. So you have to come at them with, of course, you know, how's it going to affect their bottom line? Why should I then take this money from a profit generating side of my business then to purchase another technology, right? In the defensive side of the business. Cybersecurity is not a profit generating side of any business unless you are CrowdStrike and that's your focus because you sell products, unless you're like us because we do consulting and education and stuff, right? Those types of things. But the average company is not going to know. And so you have to remember that. Put yourself back in the shoes when you first started, even in this internship, and think, okay, how can I relay that in layman's terms, get the point across, but in business language? So how does it affect their bottom line? Why should they even care? Because remember, a lot of this, you're gonna pitch these things, and it's gonna be like, well, that's the way it's always been. You're gonna hear that even from the engineers there. Well, that's the way it's always been. Doesn't make it right, right? There's a lot of subject matter experts on what I call the legacy way of doing things. Just because they've codified a certain process or using a certain tool doesn't mean it's right. Okay, and that person or that team will put everything behind it. They put all the pride and ownership of it. So you don't want to demean them. That's the worst thing you do. Don't come out there as though this sucks. And I mean, it's all in the delivery, right? You learn how to be basically very tactful and tactical with the delivery of your information, so you get the right point across, right? And you don't go into, because a lot of us engineers, I am so guilty of it too. I also have to remember who I'm speaking with. I try to do research as much as I can on who the audience is, who I'm speaking with, because I also tend as an engineer to go feature functionality straight out the gate, right? Because I talk about the inner workings of things. But at that level, they don't want to hear that, right? They just want to hear the money aspect, how it's going to affect them, how much is the technology going to cost, is this a critical, high, moderate, or low, right? And why should they take money again from another aspect of the profit generating side of a business, operations, etc., to then come up with additional money, right, to support whatever you're trying to promote as a risk, right? And again, it's something that's, it's always been there. We haven't been happy, well, that you know of, like OPM, right? OPM, Office of Personnel Management, right? They were hacked a few years ago. Okay, this was in the news, okay? And all of that, and I was a State Department at the time, but OPM, Office of Personnel Management, actually houses, when you go government, like when I was DOD, when I was Army, and I had a clearance to the Army, it was managed under the Department of Defense. Okay, so now I go to Department of State, okay, as a Govy, and my clearance is managed by OPM, Office of Personnel Management. So, okay, so I'm just trying to get some context because my record was one of the ones that were compromised, right? And so here's what happened. The OPM had bought a tool, and I can't say which tool it was, but a tool. They ran some scans and concluded that there was a breach, okay? But it wasn't a recent breach. After further analysis and investigation of that breach, it was determined that a Chinese APT, right, was responsible for exfiltration of data, not just a recent hack, but over the period of 10 years, they were exfiltrating data out of there. 10 years, folks. You know, the average dwell time is about 190 to 196 days, no matter who you ask or search. That's unacceptable. And that's why SOCs, and that's why I'm also trying to promote the SOC, the Security Operations Center, for the home users, right? So, you know, SOHOs, the small office, home office, you know, your kids, even though they've got a laptop from a school, they're bringing it home, plugging it into your home network. And if your home network is unsecure, right, your machines are unsecure and all that, right, then that also can be, you know, compromise that school system also. And then they take that machine, they plug it back into the school network, et cetera, right? So infection, right? It's just irresponsible, but a lot of people don't know. They don't have time. They don't know what they look for. A lot of folks think they know. Well, let's just do antivirus and use a VPN. Okay, but there's a lot. It's a multi-layered approach when it comes to cybersecurity. That's why there's a cybersecurity specialty. Okay, so I did a recent podcast. You guys can just share it out everywhere. Start putting the word out that we're onboarding organizations, large and small. Government has to be, they're already taken care of. Okay, they have to go in the FedRAMP compliant aspect. The back end, if anybody asks, is in AWS. So all the infrastructure is in IaaS, infrastructure as a service. We have all of our Active Directory infrastructure. All that is managed and maintained, you know, and the back end there. We have access to the VPC, the console, by which to manage and monitor these systems, because you can't just have technology. You have to have the people to be able to watch and interpret, right, these results. You know, Ian or, you know, Christian will ping me and say, you know, hey, is this your machine, right? Or whatever, or, you know, that kind of stuff, you know, incredibly important, right? And so therefore that's why I want you guys a part of that too, because you need to know SIM. If you go and you don't know what SIM is, you don't know how to, you know that it captures logs, but like JumpCloud, you know, it captures, it centralizes all the log management pursuant to AU6, right? Of the, you know, the NIST 853-5, for instance, right, of centralized management of an automated mechanism, right, to aggregate logs from your machines, right? And then of course you have to worry about retention and things like that, and that's pursuant to regulatory compliance. But you know, we have that in JumpCloud. Is it a comprehensive solution like Splunk? No. But does it meet the minimum requirements for that control? Yes, it does, 100%, right? And again, you know, the cool part is when you're supporting a small business that doesn't have a huge wallet, right? When you can go to a 5-star restaurant, right? Or Michelin star restaurant or whatever. And, you know, you have a list of, you know, you can just open up the menu and choose whatever you want. And that's fine. But what's the challenge in that? When there's a lack of funding, and even with that said, because remember, you're going to have to provide a justification for buying anything anyways. Okay. Rich companies are also very frugal with their money, and they are very unlikely. You don't have to sell security to them, but you have to sell, you know, something augmented, you know, that's a non-configuration setting, right? To something like, look to what they're already using existing first, okay? But then look outside and do a cost-benefit analysis. And the ISO 27001 even asks for that. They want the cost-benefit analysis because they want to see that there's no favoritism to a certain vendor, there's no conflict of interest, that you're actually looking objectively at least 3 tools, right? And look at cost, initial day one, you know, with the training requirement to your team, right? Ongoing support and maintenance, right? All that kind of stuff, right? With the cost of it, day one, year one, and then is it scalable, et cetera, right? So you use those same metrics, right, to evaluate at least a minimum of 3 systems or 3 solutions that you're looking at, right? Even if it's vendors, like even if it's outsourcing, let's just say a SOC, you know, you also want to do a compare and contrast between the 3 costs and everything else, the quality of the people, everything, right? So, but again, that's a quality of service that we can provide. We just have to get the name out there, right, and stuff. So I'm working with a friend of mine, and I'm going to try to tap into, you know, even like I said, schools, universities, you know, need a SOC, you know, and again, it's in the cloud. We're not looking at any of their text messages, but and that's again another reason why I want you guys in there, because we're not looking at text messages. We can look at, you know, the iOS, the iPhones now. Android's coming out, so Android was supposed to be a couple like back in August. So it's supposed to already have been embedded in there. So we're going to have to talk with John Mann, but I could have sworn that was supposed to be in there already, but I guess not. But anyways, with that said, we can do Android, you know, operating systems, and of course the iOS, not Cisco iOS, but of course iPhone, Apple iOS, right, for iPhones. okay, in there. But it's very limited in that regard. It is, okay, they've started doing that. The only other tool that I know that even looks at phones, configuration baselines and security of phones, unless you have to install it directly on the phone, like a lot of vendors like AT&T or Verizon will have certain things you can install. But to look at it from a third party perspective, because again, if I can hack his phone, I can disable those services. Okay, and you're like, okay, why is my battery being eaten up, right? You're looking at, okay, what's being run and whatever, but you can't tell that. Nobody's executing their logs from the phone. So again, soon, like the only other tool that I've known that can do that is MAAS 360, MAAS 360. And Department of Labor incorporated that like years ago. But they're the only ones that I've seen that actually have gone so far as to, basically look and monitor and manage their mobile devices outside of the laptops, right? The phones themselves, other than just issuing them and managing them from that perspective. To the trust thing, this acceptable use policy, there's rules of behavior, but that's the extent of it, right? Jump Cloud then allows us to pull in those devices. But again, you can have the technology all you want. I mean, the users, yeah, they can go directly to Jump Cloud, but they're not going to know what to do with it. And Jump Cloud doesn't offer that service. They don't offer the monitoring service. They just offer the application itself, right? So that's something then that for us, and we have bona fide trained folks, you guys are awesome, right? You guys are awesome. So what I want to do is I want everybody trained up in the SOC, okay? And then what we're going to do in 2024, we're going to drive it hard to embed and incorporate, right, organizations, okay? Small, medium, and large, and the home users, right? The home environments, okay? And of course, that's a subscription model, right? Per user subscription model that they would pay. But then, of course, then we can have you guys, kind of transition back, even if it's part-time for some extra money or whatever, right? So while we're getting staffed up, while we're getting, folks on board and things, and as we get more and more money in the larger accounts, right? Then we, be able to, do the full-time aspect of it too. But you got to start off and then grow it, right? That's what you got to do. So anyways, that's the plan. I don't care if this is recorded, so it's fine, because I'm just going to put it in the alumni area and the YouTube, and I just won't put it on public. So is everybody kind of clear on that, on the way forward, what we're going to do? We're going to really hone in on the SOC, the managed services aspect is a SOC. That's the huge benefit to organizations, honestly. Elon Musk is standing up a STEM school. He just applied for a nonprofit in Austin. I think it's Austin, Texas. So, okay, cool. Then he's got the education side on lock. I mean, I can't compete with that, honestly. Right. So again, we do have the K through 12 stuff, but as organic conversations come up and we're able to offer that. And again, it's not just me. I don't want everybody to think it's just me being the instructor. Me on the adult side right now, yes. But if we get some large accounts in, like large universities and things, then we can hire other instructors. And many of you, again, can become instructors, like even on the K through 12 stuff, right? The data privacy, helping folks, even the parents configure their phones and their tablets and their gaming systems and all kinds of things, right? So, it's just being engaging and go to the schools, right? And what have you, if they want in-person engagement and the smaller groupings and things, right? At the various age appropriate levels, because there's different activities that are age appropriate for those various levels, for help to actually put in and relate to, the actual problem, right? And whatever. So, so it becomes a real, and again, it's for kids, parents, and go ahead.
I wanted to interject a little earlier, but then
absolutely. Go ahead.
I started losing a little track there. About steps moving forward. You want everybody in the SOC. Do you want them to? You want me and whoever has the admin privileges to give them the administrative rights to the organizations they're within on Jump Cloud, or you want them to have the access to the main?
Yeah, excellent question. So,
or you can let me know later if you'd like.
Okay, I think for right now, let's just give them admin access. The ones that have gotten the core certs, let's just give them full admin access to that organization of which they've been provisioned. Okay. And then as we, as they get more and more familiar with it and we feel comfortable, then we can give them MTP access, the multi-tenant, and they can see the other organizations in there too, so they can get a better understanding, right, of how the other stuff is set up too. That would be my recommendation. Everyone
Okay.
else that doesn't have the core cert though, then they can just get admin read only in their organization only for now. So that's what I would
Okay.
recommend.
Okay, so we can give help desk or something like that to those who have their core and read only to those that don't? At least for now?
Yes,
Okay,
that's correct.
okay,
Yes. Yeah, and because I mean, they need to be able to navigate through the different features, functionality, and the dashboard, right? So they can at least get an understanding, even when they're shadowing, right? So,
right,
the folks that don't want to do SOC, I'm just like, I'm making it mandatory because, even doing GRC, okay, even getting a GRC job, you have to have the technical underpinning, the knowledge, so that you can even make recommendations on the policy procedure side or technical recommend or anything like that, right? So the more the more you can get exposure to the SOC, because basically it's defense. We used to call it a NOC, Network Operations Center, right? And then it was SNOC or whatever, and then it's SOC, right? Because it's gone through different iterations. Okay, IT service desk, IT help desk is also ingrained in a SOC, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, right? So when it's submitted, password lockout, whatever. And also the cool part is in Jump Cloud, we can remote into, somebody's box. They have to, of course, give permission. They have to be there. You coordinate with them. It's like good old like DameWare into utilities was back in the day and all that. But you can actually remote in and help people walk through their problems. So it's also an IT service desk, help desk aspect. And it's very, hands-on customer focused. So that's why too, the more you get familiar with speaking with other people, get comfortable with the uncomfortable, presentation skills, that'll also help you to be better engaged and feel comfortable with speaking even on the phone or a video call or walking somebody through a problem, right? Understanding that the average user isn't going to be technical from the jump. So you have to be very patient with them, right? So, but again, it's very customer focused. So, like the MTTR, MTTD, right? Those are different KPIs that we, mean time to detect, mean time to respond, right? All those are KPIs that are incredibly important in the customer service aspect. It's customer service first and foremost, and then notifying a user if you find that let's just say their operating system on their laptop, for instance, is end of life, right? Then it's our job to note that end of shift report. We notify the user, right? And we work with them for resolution, right? And what have you. So that everybody stays compliant, remains compliant, right? Those types of things. Anyways, all right, I shall be quiet. I hope that helps. I hope that provides additional clarity to everything. You can also watch the Loom as well. They kind of expanded upon it there, and I even put slides on there. So with the question and answer. So, yeah, I apologize, you guys, because I go off on a long dissertation and just have a lot in my head sometimes, and it just comes out full stop. But I do care, and I, again, for those of you that want to stay on after the 29th, again, it'll be just GRC focused, and then we'll, the SOC aspect will be, again, we just need to really concentrate on onboarding organizations. Okay, go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
Hi, Anna. Yeah, I asked a question inside the chat. Basically, it's what I'm wondering is, if you want us to shadow, do we have to schedule it, or can the person that's on the current shift have like an open call where whoever's available can jump in and shadow?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say coordinate though, because we have a lot of folks, and we do have, we need to give you access to the channels too. So that's on me to do. I need to give you access to the channels because we have a check-in, check-out, right? I want you to follow through. I want you to actually, yes, have a video call or whatever, kind of walk through so they can help you navigate, through our checklist and all that, the requirements and things like that. But don't just hop on, because it could be somebody else too, right? That's, maybe somebody's subbing for somebody's shift, because we've got that too, especially with the holidays. So definitely coordinate that through Ian and Eric, Christian, and what have you. So Marlon, right? So we need to just coordinate that and get you on a designated shift per week. And again, let's just say you're available this week. Let's just say Monday, because we do our shifts in 4-hour increments. So I want you to be there, right, for the entire 4 hours. Okay. Normally SOCs are 8-hour increments. We do them in 4-hour increments and makes them better in bite-sized chunks, especially since we have a lot of part-timers and interns. Makes it perfectly to navigate through that. But I want you there. I want you to follow through. And the first time you can watch them do it, of course, they would take the action in the system if you're just shadowing. But I want you to actually go through the end of shift. They should assign you, delegate. You should walk through the end of shift report. But they should assign that to you, and you should be working then with that person, you then doing it, because we learn by doing, right? If you're just watching, you might as well just watch YouTube then, right? So I want you to be more of a participant also where you can, given the access that you have. And then, of course, uploading the report, that would be the lead, right? Or whoever's on that shift, making the change. And again, we don't make any changes in the system in Jump Cloud, right? That's something we discuss. You note it in the end of shift report, and there's after review. And those are things you would make recommendations then to ITCCB, right? And you make a recommendation for change. Don't make any changes without getting authorization first, because these are live production systems, right? So, and something that you might think minor and benign can end up being something major with that change. So, all right, go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that was.
Hasn't put his hand down on the thing.
I thought I put it down already. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're good. You're good. I hope it was clear.
There was also just one other question that Kevin had asked. Will we be going over the PCI DSS and HIPAA sometime in the future?
Yes, we are. Actually, yes, we are. So we're gonna do the ITCCB Friday next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, I'll be doing those trainings. So that's why, like I said, we're not going to do any career AMAs this month. We'll do that. We'll do career AMAs, of course, monthly for all alumni in January, going every month. But I do need to get all that training out. So, CFC is covered in the podcast, that kind of thing. But, and then we covered ISO 27001 tonight. You got the NIST and CIS training already, right? But yeah, the PCI DSS, that HIPAA, right? All that kind of stuff. Yes, that's forthcoming. So I'm going to use the Wednesdays for the trainings, and then the Fridays for the ITCCBs. Okay,
Actually,
if that's cool with you guys.
I have another quick question, or at least hopefully a quick question. So a difference between, I've noticed with like NIST and CIS, we can kind of access those resources for free, correct? But the ISO 27001, at least through the ISO.org, looks like it costs like Swiss francs, like 150 Swiss francs or something like that. Is there?
That's correct. Yeah, and I did have those. I had a lot of those pulled down that I had pulled down. A couple of years ago, 2 years ago, actually. Let me see if I can find them, because I had uploaded them into Nifty somewhere, but we no longer use Nifty.
Because I found some old versions of the ISO 27001, but they're from like 2013. I think the most current edition is 2022.
Okay, no, that's fair. So you use, at least if it's an old document, just to save your money, use the ones that are uploaded in our SharePoint, just as a reference point, knowing that there's a current one. And also what you would do anyways is, just like with NIST, right? Whenever you're going and doing an assessment or an audit, you would actually make sure you have the most current documents anyways, right? So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. They are a pay to play. Same thing with the ITIL documents. So those ITIL documents, did I give those to you guys already? All those, the ITIL package of documents, that costs money too. That wasn't free either. So again, it's a complimentary. Don't share any of our templates that, again, have any CyberAgent's data in them, okay? Because then you're sharing sensitive information. But if it's a template that doesn't have anything, right, like the ITIL documents and stuff like that, then you can use that. And again, that's a complimentary thing I was providing to everyone anyways. I did that to last internship folks, for you guys. So if you don't have them, let me know, because did we upload them somewhere in the SharePoint?
I can't recall seeing them anywhere.
Okay, maybe those got overlooked.
Maybe those were back in Nifty or something like that. Maybe they didn't get moved over.
Yeah, they probably did. And that's all right. I have it downloaded. So what I'll do is I'll share that with you, and then we can upload it. But I want everybody to take that with them, because it's got agile documents. It's got all that. It's a service delivery model in there. Like even when you talk to about 20,000, right? The ISO 27,000 or 20,000 service delivery, right? We talked ITIL, service delivery. And if you want to work and support the McKinseys of the world, the management consulting groups, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, KPMGs, then you need to know ITIL, right? You really need to know ITIL. So I'll cover that too. In fact, I'll do that. I'll do ITIL. I'll cover PCI DSS, because that's an overview. I'll just do the overview of it. And I'll actually even cover HIPAA. I'll do the three next, the next session. I can fit all those in a couple hours. So rather easily, actually. So that'll be fine. I'll just do an overview. And I also have a couple of supplemental guidance videos too that I'll provide you guys. So I believe those are in the Discord already, but I know a lot of that stuff can get lost in the sauce on the various channels. So I'll point to the specific videos I'm referring to because it goes over ITIL like really well, really well, and the service delivery model and everything else, service delivery catalog, if you will, and all that.
Perfect.
So you're going to ask, sometimes you're going to be asked to put together a service delivery catalog and be like, what the heck is that? So that's why I'm also sharing that with you too, because again, if you can work at one of the big fours like Deloitte's or even Accenture, Accenture follows that too, right? So, that'll actually just help you be miles ahead of all your other competitors out there going for the same jobs, right? So, because a lot of them don't even know that you need to have ITIL. It's not even really covered in any of the academia either. I always bring it up as a reference point. It's not covered. A lot of the stuff too that like the ISO 27, it's not covered either. But see, I'm certified in it too. So I have the certified to teach it. Okay. So again, I guess maybe that's the difference. Yeah. So anyways, I just want to provide you, I apologize for the documentation or the information overload. You'll have the recording, you'll have the supplemental guidance documentation I did reference tonight to include the ITIL stuff. And then again, as soon as the recording is available, I'll provide it to you. Okay, is everybody cool? Any final alibis tonight? All right, I really appreciate you all's time. Okay, you guys are just a phenomenal group of folks, and hang in there, okay? And yeah, I apologize for the information overload. We'll get this we'll get through this together. But these are really important aspects that you really need to learn. So somebody has their hand up. Who is it? Abdul? You have a question?
Well, thank you very much, ma'am, for the session. You mentioned about, I asked a question in the chat. You mentioned about the continuation of the SOC after the 29th of December. So can you please explain more about the continuation of the program you mentioned?
Yes, so the next step, did you get your Jump Cloud course cert yet, Abdul?
Yes, ma'am, I got it.
All right, awesome. All right, then you will be then added to, so I know Marlon, Ian, and several others, we're actually looking to reconcile the list of people that have actually gotten the course cert, but we're running up on a couple weeks. So, I mean, we really need to get you guys, just flip the switch in the system in Jump Cloud to enable their admin access, okay, in their organization. So at least they can, then what you'll do is you should get an email, okay? You should get an email, and then you'll need to log in as admin, okay? So they're gonna have to walk you through that. So what I would do is, to make sure you have access and everything, what I would do is just get on a shift. I would ask to get on a shift, whether or not you're an observer or not, okay? I would work with them to get on a shift immediately, okay? We have 24/7, 365. So don't wait till next week, do it now. Just get on a shift. And then during that shift, then who's ever assigned the SOC analyst, SOC lead can actually walk you through to make sure you have the access you need, you're logging in Jump Cloud correctly in the admin console, okay? You're navigating, you understand what to do, and where to go and all these things, right? And so then you can start doing that. You will also partake in the end of shift reports. Even the observers, I want the observers also, they can observe, but I want them, again, doing hands-on, because look, we're techie people, we learn by doing, right? You don't learn anything by just demos, demo, then what, right? It's better if you do it and take action. And then you'll be like, okay, I get it. So when a recruiter or an interviewer is saying, how would you navigate through this? Because it'll be a scenario-based question, right? They don't just do the academic question. I mean, you should by that time already know what a firewall is, already know what encryption is, all that kind of stuff, right? That's basics. They're going to talk about if you can understand and do the problem-solving aspect, the troubleshooting, and they'll walk you through scenario-based questions. And so you having then eyes on and hands-on to a degree as much as you can have, and even, like I said, help desk with read-only or whatever, and you'll see the various levels of roles in there, but you'll be able to navigate then and get access beyond what you initially had access to, right? The user just gives you access to install the agent on your machine, right? Change your password, that kind of stuff, right? It's very, very minimal. But the admin, offers a whole different perspective. So again, I would say for everyone, just reach out to Ian, Marlon, right? Who else? To get on just get on a shift, and then you guys can actually navigate through the access and everything else during that shift time. That's what I would recommend to expedite this stuff. So, because again, we have a couple weeks, and within that week time frame are the holidays too. So, but again, our SOC is 24/7, 365. We just do a minimize, like we'll do a person on call or true person integrity or whatever, whatever during the holidays. But it's important, right? Because you need to monitor your systems. It's important, and these are our legitimate systems. So anyways, all right, I'll quit talking. You guys are awesome. Well, okay, so was that clear? Next steps with everyone? Yeah, but I want everybody doing the SOC. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, it sounds good to me.
Okay, excellent. Because I see it says, Michael says, I believe Marlon shared a Google form taking availability for the SOC. I want everybody, though, to be in the SOC. I want everybody to get, whether you're observer or not, I want everybody in the SOC because that's the value add to your resume. Just trust me on that. You'll hate me now, but you'll love me later. You'll still be doing GRC. All of you will still be doing GRC, by the way. Just because you navigate to the SOC doesn't mean the GRC side goes away either. Okay, that's why I have you, underpin, like get a titanium foundation of GRC so you know exactly even what technical controls and configuration settings to recommend, like even what VPN solution you recommend. It all follows through the GRC, right? So GRC compliance, right? If you don't know that, then you have no value. Okay, I will quit talking, I promise. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. You guys are awesome. I look forward to seeing, it's awesome to see everybody, jobs and vacations and just super cool. I'm like, awesome. And that's why I do this. I do this for you. Okay. I do this for you. So anyways, much love. And I'm not going to say happy holidays just yet because we still have some game time here. We're going to take advantage of it. Okay. But all right, you guys have a great evening. Okay.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you,
No
Anna.
problem.
Have a good evening.
No problem.
Thank you, Anna.
Anytime. Of course. Absolutely.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Good night.